A magnificent dessert spread elicits awe. A brown-haired girl marvels at the perfect, extensive dessert collection. She decides to begin with a strawberry crepe. She happily prepares to eat. Someone's happy snack time is interrupted. The baby furiously demands not to be disturbed. Her anger turns to sudden confusion. She looks at her own tiny hand. She finds herself standing in a crib. She remembers acing her high school midterms. She recalls buying desserts after her exams. She enjoyed her treats while reading a novel. She recalls the novel she was reading, where characters like crepe were named after desserts. She remembers the novel was dark, and her own life was miserable, with her mother berating her for buying cake, so she escaped into sleep. She sadly remembers it was her birthday, and when she woke up, she had been reborn as a baby. She finds herself in a lavish estate. Realizing it's not a dream, she accepts this as her second life. She greets her new life with a wave. She decides to live this new life happily. She wonders who is approaching her crib. A woman and a "Wah!" the boy exclaims excitedly. The baby stares back in confusion. He babbles excitedly in an unknown language. She wonders what on earth he's saying. Confused, she wonders if this is the world's language, managing only baby sounds. Her sounds catch the boy by surprise. The boy keeps repeating Shavorin while the woman speaks in the same unintelligible language. Shh! The woman quiets the excited boy. He leans in and whispers, "Shavorin." "Hello, how are you doing today?" Gasp. The boy is stunned. He excitedly tells the woman what happened. Believing they think she's a genius, she feels proud. The woman calls the boy Galette, who gasps in surprise. The baby sits up, and Galette stares, confused. Galette looks down at her with a warm smile. He points to himself, repeating his name, Galette. She points to herself, saying crepe. She suddenly realizes her own name is Crepe. As the woman speaks to Galette, the baby listens. A dejected Galette is let out by a maid. The woman stays behind with the baby. Holding the baby, the woman murmurs Galette, while the baby thinks her own name, Crepe. The baby, hearing the names, has a flash of recognition. The names are from the novel she was reading. She realizes she has been reincarnated into the novel. She realizes with excitement that she is now the protagonist. As the protagonist, she stands resplendent in a beautiful blue gown. She accepts her new reality, knowing it's too detailed to be just a dream. Her new mother begins reading a fairy tale about Princess Parfait. The mother smiles, explaining that the princess adored desserts. Her brother, Galette, reads dramatically about a villain's appearance. Seeing Crepe's expression, her family worries she's in pain. The mother comforts her, thinking the story scared her, but Crepe silently prays this isn't the novel's world. Galette promises to protect her, reminding her that her family is here. The mother and Galette share a warm, smiling moment together. Crepe recalls the original protagonist suffering from jealousy and threats. She remembers the protagonist's life changed after meeting the crown prince. A horrifying vision reveals her mother's future death when she is 7. Another vision shows Galette will die when she turns 10. Still just a baby, she realizes there is still time to prevent their tragic fates. She feels a surge of hope, knowing she can change their future. The mother asks Galette to get Canule, but he staunchly refuses. Hearing the name Canula, Crepe freezes in shock. She recognizes the name of the novel's second son as a boy waits outside. Growl, her stomach rumbles, confusing her mother. Her mother encourages her to befriend her brothers, including Canula. Crepe buries her face, terrified by the thought of meeting him. How can she be close to him, she wonders, as her mother smiles on. Her heart pounds as she realizes the villain has arrived. A boy with black hair and red eyes enters the room. She stares at Canula, the villain of the story. Years pass peacefully at the grand estate. A now older Crepe and Galette enjoy tea time in a gazebo. Surrounded by desserts, she happily enjoys her treats. Now 10 years old, Galette playfully teases his sister, calling her Mill. Millie contentedly savors her tea and cookie. Galette gasps, looking up with sudden concern. He wraps his jacket around her chair. Much to her confusion, He insists she wear it, but she tells him she isn't cold. Kanul arrives and Galette tells him to wear his own jacket properly. Kanul scolds Galette for faking an illness, while Mil notes Kanul is now 8. Millie sips her tea, thankful for the peaceful days they've had. Kanul warns Galette not to get sick again, revealing he believed the lie. Galette looks away, embarrassed to be caught in his deception. A flashback reveals Galette tearfully refusing to go to school to stay with Mil. Mil smirks, remembering that her brother faked being sick to avoid school. Galette reaches for Kanula, trying to make amends. Their mother arrives, pleased to see them all gathered. She smiles warmly, dressed in a bright yellow gown. The mother asks Galette how school is, and he curtly replies, "It's fine." She playfully reminds him of his recent whining about a cold. As Kanul scowls, an embarrassed Galette changes the subject to Mil. Her mother recalls they haven't celebrated Millie's birthday and asks her age. Millie proudly holds up 5 fingers, announcing she is 5. She thinks that seeing her mother's happy reaction makes acting like a child worthwhile. The mother announces Millie's upcoming birthday party. Galette hesitates to invite his friends. Kanul teases Galette for being protective. Galette excitedly agrees with Kanul's assessment. Mila is surprised by her brother's devotion. Her mother tells Galette his plan won't work. Millie learns her father will be there too. Galette and Kanul are surprised by the news. She entrusts Mil's care to her brothers. The mother insists Kanula will be introduced too. Kanul scowls at the thought of socializing. Millie hesitantly agrees to the plan. Galette proudly promises to protect his siblings. His mother expresses her gratitude for Galette. Millet has a sudden realization about the story. She now understands Kanul's feelings of inferiority. Galette notices his brother's quiet mood. Kanul asks his brother about their father. Galette says he often writes to their father. Kanul admits he only wrote out of obligation. Kemul falls into a somber silence. Mil realizes Kanula hardly remembers their father. She reflects on the harsh labels Kanula faced. Mila admits she just copied Galette's letters. A man in a formal uniform appears. Millie contemplates preparing for her social debut, but a more important matter occupies her thoughts. Annoyed, she wonders who is staring at her. She questions if this man was in the novel. Mila addresses the mysterious man directly. He is surprised when she asks if he's new. She impatiently asks if he is a new knight. He introduces himself as Mark, a new recruit. She takes notes on Mark, her new guard. She dismisses him as an unimportant character. Frustrated, she complains that he's a distraction. Her intense scribbling catches him by surprise. He finds her drawing fascinating, but she knows her notes are safe. Still, she decides it's better to be careful. She wonders why her dad assigned such a guard. Mark is amazed to learn she is only 5. He marvels at how advanced she is for her age. Annoyed by his rambling, she interrupts him. She curtly tells him to turn off the light. He panics and scrambles to turn off the light. The room becomes dark and quiet for the night. Alone, she once again thinks about Mark. He is now officially a person of interest. The day of the party arrives at the Grand Estate. As the day of her birthday party approached, unfamiliar guests begin arriving at Count Shijede's mansion, staying for a few days. A man in a hat and a woman in a purple dress walk toward the Grand Estate. A little blonde girl gasps in awe, wondering when she will meet all the new people. A man in a uniform questions if it would be fine for her not to meet all of them. She insists they all came for her birthday, and he remarks on how mature she is. Hup! Deciding to grab a snack first, she hops down from her stool. The man calls out to my lady, asking if she's already leaving to greet the guests. She closes her eyes and shakes her head, thinking, wrong. He smiles knowingly, asking if she's planning to run away instead. Gasp! Her eyes snap open, realizing she's been found out. She stands beside him, looking slightly caught. Admitting he's right, she wonders if she's that easy to read. He simply smiles, confirming her suspicions without a word. The scene shifts to the magnificent and towering Shijete Library. She wanders into the library where 2 guards stand watch and a boy is reading. The red-eyed boy at the table calls her Doodler, asking if she's there to doodle again. Holding a slice of pie, she clarifies that she came for snacks, which he thinks is worse. She thinks about how Canola mistakes her life strategy guide written in Korean for simple doodles. Frustrated, she walks away from the table where Kanuli is absorbed in his book. Peeking over a chair, she feels it's too much to handle alone and meekly asks Appa for help. Hidden behind his book, he coldly asks why he should, prompting her to think he's a jerk. Her attendant comforts her as she fumes, thinking Kanul's personality is awful even for a villain. Though she really doesn't want to be friends with him, she knows she has to. For her family's future, she resolves to get close with Kanula no matter what. With newfound determination, she prepares her fork to enact her plan. She lifts the entire slice of pie with her fork, ready to make her move. Calling out to him as Appa, she gets a questioning glance from the red-eyed boy. She offers the large slice of blueberry pie with a hopeful expression. Stretching across the table, she presents the pie, confident that no one can resist blueberry. Kanul simply stares at the pie offered to him, using his book as a shield. She beams with excitement, sure he'll thank her and think she's cute. He abruptly stands and walks away, ignoring her as she calls out his title. The attendant politely addresses the departing young Master Kanula. Cannoli warns the attendant that Crepe must have eaten something strange, and to watch her more closely. The attendant follows Kanula as they leave the room together. Her hands tremble as she clutches the rejected pie, muttering Kanula's name under her breath. Her face burns with rage as she can't believe he dared to reject the blueberry pie. Fine, she says aloud, accepting that her mission was never going to be easy. Stuffing her face with pie, she vows to become the most lovable little sister ever. A grim thought surfaces. There are only 2 years left until her mother's assassination. She thinks of Galette, who calls her name sweetly, confident he'll be affectionate again soon. In the library again, she cheerfully shouts, "Appa!" at the black-haired boy. She earnestly calls out his name again, trying to get his attention. Kunle looks over from his book, asking if she isn't busy. "Tease, K." She tells him she came just to see him, but he scoffs dismissively. Crepe sends Mr. Mark to get Dalgona milk, assuring him she will be fine with her brother's night there. As Mr. Mark leaves, she waves and encourages him to ask for a large portion. Now that the obstacle is gone, she readies her strategy guide and prepares to make her move. Kunelte Bodo Shijete, the second son of the Count. Looking at her My Life strategy guide, she notes Kunel's interest in magic wasn't in the original story. The blonde girl feels something is strange, recalling that only 2 people used magic in the original story. She wonders why Kanula is suddenly interested in magic. Seeing this as an opportunity, she looks at him with resolve. She decides to use Kanula's interest in magic to get closer to him. She waves to get his attention, asking Kanul if he likes magic. She hands him a folded note, telling him to show it to their dad and claim he wrote it. A blushing Kanula hesitates as she impatiently urges him to take the note. She imagines a mission clear screen, confident in her plan's success. She cheers, declaring her mission to make her brother a mage is complete. Imagining a grateful Kanula in a wizard hat, she thinks he'll have to like her now. She reminds Kanula again to give the note to their dad tomorrow. As her attendant returns with drinks, Kanula asks what the strange note even is. While she celebrates the arrival of Dalgona milk, Kanula eyes the note with suspicion. The scene shifts to a magnificent, sunlit estate. With her family, a young Kripa nervously wonders what her father is like. She listens intently, her expression serious. A blond man arrives, greeting a woman and lovingly patting a boy named Galette on the head. The man, Praline, embraces the woman, Sufel, who is relieved he's safe. As her parents embrace, Crepe watches from a distance, feeling left out. She looks on in shock, her thoughts focused on the man. A kind-faced man with a blonde beard and purple eyes smiles down as she wonders if this is her dad. The man crouches down to meet her gaze. She shyly acknowledges him with a quiet yes. Suddenly, he scoops her into his arms, startling her. He lifts her into the air with a joyful cheer. Held aloft, a wide-eyed Crepe manages a timid, "Hello, Dad." Later, they are in a grand hall filled with party guests. Her father, the Count, carries her on his shoulders as guests comment on his return and the cute child. A woman asks the Count about danger in the periphery, but he reassures her. Riding high on her father's shoulders, Crepe looks around the bustling hall. Her father asks if she's okay, but she inwardly frets over the embarrassing situation. A man calls out, addressing her as Young Lady Crepe. Mr. Mark formally introduces himself to the Count as Crepe's knight. Mr. Mark is overcome with emotion at having spoken to the Count, much to Crepe's confusion. As her father walks on, she reaches out and holds his hand. Phew! Finally, on her own 2 feet, she breathes a huge sigh of relief. A voice calls out, "Hey, doodler," making her turn in confusion. It's Kanula, standing with his arms crossed in the hallway. Crepe praises her mother's taste, while a confused Kanula asks what she's talking about. Kanula scolds her for not paying attention during her first public appearance. She dismisses his concern, happily noting she gets a separate birthday party. She eagerly asks Kanula if he showed the note to their dad, and he confirms he did. He explains their dad seemed surprised and wanted to discuss it later. Galette suddenly appears, asking what they're discussing and startling a blushing Kanula. Kanula jumps back in fright, and Galette apologizes for shocking him. Her eyes sparkle with awe as she exclaims, "Wow!" She's mesmerized by Galette, who stands proudly in his formal military-style suit. Blushing, she thinks he'll grow up to be a very handsome man. As the 3 siblings stand together, party guests admire how cute they are. But in the shadows, cruel whispers mock her chubby appearance in a frilly dress. She realizes that in this world, too, people judge by appearances. Overwhelmed by the situation, she struggles not to cry. Her father stumbles in pain beside a stoic Kanul. Galette brightly suggests they go get some cake to cheer up. Moved by her brother's kindness, her eyes well up with tears. She happily takes her brother's hand and lets him lead the way. Galette watches with adoration as his sister enjoys her treat. She beams with absolute delight, ready for more dessert. She asks for Kanula, making Galette question her constant interest in him. He worries he's been neglectful, but she realizes he's just jealous. She gives him a tight hug as he asks for her affection too. A man scolds Galette for his public display, but he can't help himself. Kanul presses her about the note she wrote, but she hesitates. She recalls the note contained the Crown Prince's magic formula. Her plan is to tell their father that Kanula wrote it. When questioned, she claims she saw the formula in Galette's book. Galette insists Kanula thank her, but he remains coldly silent. Kanule lets out a deep sigh, shocking his siblings. Confused by his reaction, she asks if he doesn't want the credit. He explodes in anger, denying he ever wanted to learn magic. His furious outburst completely derails her plan. Galette grabs Kanul, angrily defending Crepe from his insults. She asks why he was reading magic books if he wasn't interested. He flusteredly explains that he just likes the magic circles. He passionately explains his love is for the art, not the formulas. Murmur, murmur, Kanula lectures them on magic circle designs, leaving them speechless. His bizarre explanation leaves Crepe and Galette completely baffled. He proudly finishes his rant, much to Crepe's disbelief. The family appears on a balcony before the party guests. Her father announces a dual celebration for Crepe and Kanula. He proudly presents his 2 children to the assembled crowd. Galette waves happily to the guests below. Her father suddenly shifts the focus entirely onto Kanula. He declares that Kanula is a magic genius at only 8 years old. He announces Kanula's acceptance into the magic organization as guests applaud. In the midst of the applause, Kanula viciously pinches her cheek. "Ah," she cries out in pain as her father panics over the commotion. The family rushes to the scene as chaos erupts on the balcony. A noblewoman publicly orders them to stop their embarrassing display. Her plan a total failure, she wonders why everything went so wrong. After the disastrous party, the children face their parents' judgment. Her father asks if Crepe was the true source of the magic formula. The children quietly confirm that it was indeed Crepe's work. He then offers Crepe the chance to study at the magic organization. She is interested in magic, but hesitates to accept. She realizes leaving would mean she couldn't save her mother. Looking at her father, she firmly tells him she doesn't want to go. He reminds her that great talent should be used to help others. He ends by praising her for having learned magic, all on her own. Her father encourages her, looking forward to her future achievements. Nearby, Kunula flushes with an expression of intense anxiety. Other nobles make small talk, complimenting the family's children. Bored, Crepe dismisses the party guests as unimportant side characters. Her thoughts are interrupted by the name she dreaded, Marquis Montblanc. A distinguished man with white hair greets her father, causing her to panic. When her father returns the greeting, her fear is confirmed. It's him. She recalls a horrifying truth. The Marquis is the villain who corrupts Kunula. Staring up at him, she can't believe the main villain has appeared so soon. The Marquis leans down to compliment the children, startling Crepe. Frightened, she suddenly screams and flees the room in terror. Galette immediately tells his parents he will go find her. Her father apologizes for her behavior, but the Marquis is surprisingly understanding. Galette finds her, his face etched with worry as he asks if she's okay. He explains how shocked they were by her sudden escape, leaving her speechless. She can't possibly explain that she just met the man fated to kill them. Trying to cheer her up, Galette playfully pokes her cheek, calling her cute. He gently caresses her face, asking why she looks like she's about to cry. He reassures her, promising that her big brother will always be by her side. Her gaze hardens with resolve as she thinks, "I don't want you to die." She calls out to Galette, capturing his full attention. The two siblings share a quiet moment, sitting together on the hallway floor. The scene shifts, showing the three siblings gathered in the garden gazebo. A year passes, and Crepe reflects that her 6th birthday has come and gone. She notes that thankfully, neither her father nor the Marquis attended this year's party. Kunul teases her, asking what she'll do without her first love present. Galette immediately chides Kunul for making such an inappropriate joke. He becomes fiercely protective, shouting that she'd never love an old man. A servant wheels in a large gift box topped with an enormous red bow. A maid named Amy announces a gift from her first love, much to Crepe's dismay. As Amy offers her the chance to open it, Crepe eyes the box with suspicion. She worries that a gift from the villainous Marquis might be a bomb. Wah! She opens it to find a box of beautiful and delicious-looking desserts. Kunul remarks on how adored she is, and she internally contemplates killing him. Galette furiously forbids her from eating anything sent by the Marquis. Crepe smiles, explaining that this extreme reaction stems from her last birthday. The scene flashes back to her, walking through the grand estate. She recalls how little the novel revealed about the Marquis's true motives. Deciding to confront him, she's suddenly stopped by her guard, Mark. Surprised by his sudden appearance, she asks how he even got there. He declares himself her ever-present shadow, a thought she finds unsettlingly true. A smooth voice from behind asks if she was looking for him, making her jump. Marquis Montblanc appears before her, a smug smile on his face. He addresses her as young Lady Crepe, and she offers a timid hello. He asks what she wanted to say, causing her to become hopelessly flustered. He invites her inside for a private chat, and she readily agrees to his suggestion. The Marquis leads Crepe and her ever-present guard into a private room. As the door clicks shut behind them, she thinks, "Now's the time." "Mark, get rid of him," she commands, and her knight holds a dagger to the shocked Marquis's throat. Her fantasy of victory quickly fades to the awkward reality of her failed assassination attempt. The Marquis compliments her dress as she nervously claims to like it. She internally admits it's just the only dress that still fits her. He praises her independence, but warns that her family's knightly pride is a poison. He speaks of a coming era of magic, making her instantly suspicious of his motives. The Marquis then brings up the commotion that happened during her party. He downplays the incident, but she finds his choice of words strange and calculated. To change the subject, she abruptly asks the Marquis if he is married. Her sudden question catches him off guard, making him wonder if he went too far. He explains that wizards are forbidden from marrying, but are permitted to adopt children. He asks if she's interested in magic, and she bluntly tells him no. She then boldly declares that she's interested in him instead, shocking everyone. Her surprising confession leaves the Marquis completely baffled and speechless. Oh, she instantly realizes the massive, embarrassing blunder she just made. She flails, desperately trying to take back her words as he dabs his face. Flustered, panicking, she blurts out a compliment about his appearance, thinking she's doomed. She recalls how the Marquis later tattled to her mother about their conversation. The story became a running joke, causing her a year of family-wide embarrassment. But thanks to that, she now corresponds with him, hoping to protect her family. While enjoying the dessert, she concedes that the villain has surprisingly good taste. Ting? In a flash, the entire box of delicious desserts is empty. Feeling her full stomach, she wonders if she should ask to learn swordsmanship. She announces she is going for a walk, leaving her brothers at the table. Galette offers to join her, but she firmly tells him not to follow. She begins a determined waddle through a field of flowers on her own. In this life, she resolves she won't stress about her weight. She decides her family's safety and her own happiness matter more than her appearance. But a flicker of doubt crosses her face as she pauses. After a moment's hesitation, she concludes that some exercise is probably necessary. Whoosh! Her first attempt at exercise immediately ends with a stumble. She falls flat on her face, defeated, before she even began. Completely exhausted from the fall, she lies panting on the ground. Painful memories of being shamed for her weight and bad grades flash through her mind. She relives a moment from her past life when her mother wished she was never born. Snap! She screams, "Stop it!" jolting awake from the terrifying nightmare. As she gasps for breath, a concerned voice asks if she's awake. She finds herself surrounded by a group of worried knights, asking if she's okay. Still dazed and blushing, she struggles to comprehend her situation. The scene shifts to the imposing stone walls of the knights' barracks. A knight explains she's in the infirmary because she fainted during her walk. Mark cheerfully explains she fainted from a lack of oxygen, but she curtly cuts him off. Another knight informs her that her father asked if she received his gift yet. She has absolutely no expectations, knowing her father's taste in gifts is legendarily bad. She recalls his previous presents, a monster head, a rock, and moldy peaches. In fact, his gifts were so awful that her mother had to burn them all. The knights discuss her father's monstrous reputation, and she asks for their honest opinion. A glorious image of her father, Praline César Suzette, appears as his name is called. Seeing his men cheer for him, she realizes he's far more respected than she knew. A kind-looking older man introduces himself as the second knight commander. The commander formally welcomes her to their division while she sits in bed. He calls his men useless punks, but introduces them as the financier knights before telling her to rest. The commander orders his men to stop disturbing the young lady and get back to training, and they shout an enthusiastic "Yep!" The commander then instructs Mark to escort Crepe wherever she wishes, and she agrees with a cheerful "Yep." As they walk through the grounds, Mark explains that this is where he trains. Mark proudly tells Crepe that everyone here trains hard for both the Suzette family and the Empire. He points out his senior spinning around as an example of hard work, but Crepe internally wishes he would read the room. Getting his attention, she timidly calls out to Mark, who answers her promptly. She suddenly asks if she should learn swordsmanship, leaving him utterly baffled by the question. Crepe lets out a massive, unladylike yawn. Mark notes that she usually eats sweet food and doesn't move much, suggesting more walks, causing her to once again wish he'd read the room. He adds that since she's learning magic with the first master, he hopes the second master will take up the sword. While looking at Canula reading, Mark openly wonders why the boy won't learn swordsmanship. Whisk Canula suddenly appears, startling Mark as he announces he has something to report. Canula asks Mark what would happen if he decided to pick up a sword. Mark explains that based on his physique, Canula would be a perfect fit for the family's style of swordsmanship. When Canula asks if he'd be even better than Galette, Mark enthusiastically agrees it's probable. As Canul considers this, Crepe thinks it's a good idea for him to focus on the sword if he's not pursuing magic. She then asks Canul what he came to tell her, and he replies that Galette sent him. Canule strikes a dramatic pose with his book, making Crepe wonder if he's trying to imitate their older brother. Blushing, he awkwardly informs her that the gift from their father has arrived. The scene transitions to a sunlit view of the magnificent family mansion. Inside, a large, smooth brown egg rests on a pillow, sparking curiosity. The family gathers around the strange gift, with Canul guessing it's an ostrich egg, and Galette suggesting it's an ornamental stone. Peeking over the table, Crepe's eyes sparkle with absolute delight. She joyfully lifts the egg, shouting, "It's Brownie!" as her mother and Galette conclude she has finally gone crazy. With a triumphant glint in her eye, Crepe happily runs off with her precious egg. Later, she realizes her father's notoriously bad taste in gifts has finally given her a way to protect her family. She decides it's time to enact the plans from her book, titled My Life Strategy. With a smug smile, she admits to herself that her grand strategy is mostly based on impulse. She reflects that her book contains her own story and key information about the state of the country. For example, it details the male protagonist, Crown Prince Appel, who is one of the world's strongest men, gifted in both magic and swordsmanship. In the original novel, Crepe ignored the gift, which turned out to be a Pegasus egg, and was sent to the Crown Prince. In return for the gift, the Crown Prince attended her 15th birthday, marking the beginning of their fated relationship. The prince raised the Pegasus, Brownie, who became his loyal steed and powerful bodyguard. Crepe laughs maniacally while hugging the egg, gloating that the prince's future bodyguard is now all hers. Watching her sister's creepy display, a concerned Galette offers her some actual brownies to eat. Holding a fork poised over the egg, Crepe ignores him and declares her intention to hatch it. Galette reads a letter from their father stating the egg is unfertilized, but Crepe scoffs, thinking a Pegasus is not a chicken. With a burst of childish glee, she exclaims that a book told her Pegasi come from big eggs, so she must hatch this one. Galette considers her words, then muses that it would be nice if a big dog hatched from it instead. His expression suddenly shifts to panic, as he worries it might be a monster egg and lunges to take it from her. He yells that it could be dangerous and they must throw it away, making Crepe wonder why her plans are being thwarted again. Canul appears in the doorway, calmly telling his older brother to let her be. Standing at the top of the stairs, Canula asks how strange the situation is, leaving Crepe to wonder why he's suddenly on her side. He then points and mocks her, saying horses don't come from eggs, calling her an idiot, which makes her furiously tell him to get out. Galette corrects his younger brother, explaining that a thesis from the magic organization proves Pegasi are born from eggs, shocking Canula. Reminding him of their pact to study magic, Galette asks if Canula saw it in the thesis, forcing him to nervously agree. Galette then concludes that since the thesis says a Pegasus egg can't be hatched, this must be a monster egg. Cheerfully, he suggests they throw away the trash their father sent, reaching for the egg as Crepe glares. Pushed to her limit, Crepe threatens to stop writing letters to the Marquis of Montblanc if they do not leave her and the egg alone. With a blush and a bright smile, Galette enthusiastically shouts, "Okay." As they hold hands, a caption declares the negotiation complete, but Crepe privately thinks it's a lie. Canul steps forward, declaring with an annoyed expression that his siblings are both stupid. Confused, Galette wonders aloud why his younger brother is suddenly in a bad mood. In the library, Crepe holds a thesis on Pegasus eggs, wondering if it's the one Galette mentioned. Deciding to take a look, she flips open the book to a page of dense, intimidating text. Nope. She quickly closes the book, deciding with a cheerful smile that she will read something else. Standing on her tiptoes, she struggles to reach a book on a high shelf, lamenting her short stature. Suddenly, Canul appears behind her and easily grabs the book, startling her. He offers her a different book, asking if she'd prefer some easy magic trivia for children, and she perks up. He smirks, calling her out on her lie about reading the thesis, and she huffily demands he give her the trivia book. Now, in a study, she asks Cannoli why he's there instead of with their brother, and he simply says he came to study. He reveals Galette is writing a letter to the Marquis of Montblanc, shocking Crepe. A vision of Galette writing appears as he explains he's warning the Marquis to stay away from her. Back in the present, Kanula quietly asks her to keep his tattling a secret. The two siblings sit at opposite ends of a long table, each focused on their own work. As Kanul writes diligently, Crepe notes that he seems to be preparing for school. She asks if he's already studying for the test, but he sarcastically tells her to read her easy book and ignore him. She watches him with a sweet but mischievous smile, thinking she'd love to pinch him just once. Kanul frowns in concentration, struggling with simple math and counting on his fingers. She questions why her 9-year-old brother is studying for the exam so early, but he defensively cites Galette's example and tells her to stop distracting him. "Because I can," he declares, holding his pen defiantly and telling her to study as well. She watches him with a knowing, gentle smile and simply thinks, "I see." Crepe recalls that her older brother Galette was famous and excelled in everything he did. She reflects on how Kanula spent his life in Galette's shadow, constantly trying and failing to surpass his overwhelmingly talented brother. With an image of a dark and resentful Kanula, she concludes it's easy to understand why he eventually betrayed their family. Determined to change his fate, Crepe approaches him at the study table with a book in hand. Thump! She places the book beside him, getting his attention as he continues to study. With a bright, innocent expression, she sweetly asks her Appa for help reading a section. Kanula turns away, a faint blush of annoyance on his cheeks. He tells her not to disturb him, but she persists, flattering him by saying he's good at studying. TSK, giving in with a frustrated laugh, he calls her annoying and takes the book as she thanks him effusively. Mana as a supernatural power that belongs to persons or objects is the pervasive concept in Polynesian religions and other oceanic mythologies. The term has been and continues to be influential in the fantasy role-playing game genre. Frustrated, he suddenly stands up to leave, leaving a shocked Crepe asking why. He glares back, blaming her for putting him in a bad mood before storming out. Left alone, Crepe stares in stunned silence as the door closes behind him. She slumps in her chair, tearfully wondering why her attempts to help always seem to fail. Her eyes fall upon the book he left behind on the table. She discovers the author of the Easy Magic trivia book is Quiche Lauren. In a new outfit, Crepe looks out a window, her eyes wide with excitement. Standing by the window, she announces that it's finally time to go out. In a carriage, her mother chides her for not sitting properly while Kanula calls her a baby, though Crepe notes he isn't much older. Crepe obediently sits still, promising her mother she will behave. Though she sits quietly, she can't help but feel a thrill of excitement for their outing. Their elegant carriage pulls up to a grand, sunlit building. Crepe recalls that this is where Galette has been attending school for 2 years. She remembers that in her previous life, she, her mother, and Kanula didn't visit the festival that year. Her father, busy guarding the border with his soldiers, was unable to come home. Her mother was also too occupied with managing the family's vast estate to go out. And although Galette understood the circumstances, she knew he was deeply upset that no one from his family attended the festival. A cheerful Galette decides to enter the swordsmanship competition. She recalls how he trained for months, even joining a fencing club. The scene shifts to a grand hall where the competition is underway. Spotting his family in the crowd, Galette waves and happily shouts that he's there. He then calls out to Crepe, promising he will definitely win, much to her embarrassment. Crepe cringes as an instructor tells Galette to calm down, and he sheepishly agrees. The announcer officially begins the match between Galette and another boy named Kavas. Holding his sword, Galette resolves to show his little sister how cool he can be. He charges forward with a mighty battle cry. Thump! In an instant, Galette is knocked to the floor, utterly defeated. His family watches from the stands, their faces frozen in shock. On the ground, Galette stares in disbelief at his opponent's sword. His opponent smirks, taunting him that there's no backing out now. Crushed, Galette mutters in disbelief. I lost. His opponent stands victoriously over him, sword pointed at his neck. Their mother suggests they pretend it never happened. But Kanul starts laughing until she tells him to behave. With a mischievous wink, Kanul thinks he's just discovered a way to beat his brother. As a dejected Galette walks away, Kanula thinks he should be prepared. The ceremony continues as students line up before the audience. A knight commander finishes his congratulatory speech. Crepe lets out a big yawn, wondering how many more speeches there will be. The announcer introduces the final speaker, a researcher from the magic organization. A woman with long, vibrant red hair walks toward the center of the hall. Crepe recognizes the name Quiche Lauren, feeling she's heard it before. With her face in shadow, Quiche dramatically raises her arm. A massive, glowing magic circle appears in the air, amazing the students below. Beside a stunned Canula, Crepe marvels at the beautiful magic. The woman cheerfully introduces herself as Quiche Lauren from Strudel's magic organization. Their mother notes how her voice carries, as if by magic, a thought Crepe shares. Quiche enthusiastically declares that magic is fun and easy for everyone. She invites everyone to join the magic organization, regardless of age or gender. The key, she announces while holding up a book, is magic trivia, which is very easy for children. Crepe has a sudden realization. This is the author of the Pegasus thesis who ruined her plan to bond with Canula. Quiche laments the lack of wizards and questions the reliance on swords, leaving Crepe to wonder why she's saying this at a swordsmanship competition. Two men appear to stop her, ordering her to be dragged out as she protests. As they escort her away, she yells for them to let her go, having waited for her son to grow up. Crepe smiles with amusement, thinking the woman is a complete freak. While Quiche continues to struggle, Crepe realizes she needs to meet this Pegasus expert. The knight commander scolds Quiche for her behavior, and she meekly apologizes. Just as Quiche sighs in defeat, Crepe calls out her name. She approaches with a bright smile and a perfect curtsy. Crepe asks the surprised woman how to hatch a Pegasus egg, calling her an expert on the subject. Puzzled, Quiche wonders why a young lady is interested in such a thing. She explains that Pegasi don't actually have wings. They are divine beasts that fly using magic. Crepe thinks this theory is feasible, realizing the egg must be hatched by injecting mana. As Crepe worries it will be too late, Quiche admits it's a strong hypothesis without evidence. Quiche then muses that if she had a Pegasus egg, her son could hatch it, immediately catching Crepe's attention. Crepe asks if it's true, and Quiche proudly confirms her adopted son has incredible magical talent. She adds that there are restrictions due to his commoner background, and Crepe realizes she knows a genius commoner wizard. Crepe politely asks for the son's name. A blonde girl with purple eyes reacts with shock, repeating the name Patache after being told that's his name. Her face shadowed, Crepe hesitantly addresses the red-haired Miss Quiche. With newfound determination, Crepe passionately declares her intention to sponsor the boy. Patache is introduced as a wizard from a commoner background, though not well described in the novel. He was also Crown Principal's close confidant, who was always by his side. She realizes with shock that Patache, a mere supporting character, is the key to hatching Brownie. The scene transitions to the exterior of a grand, ornate estate. In a lavish sitting room, Crepe's mother begins to question Miss Quiche's group. Crepe sits primly beside her smiling mother, both looking content. Canul scoffs, questioning if they really followed a 6-year-old home, prompting his mother to scold him. His mother apologizes for his poor manners, while Crepe inwardly calls him a brat but admits he has a point. Her mother explains that she was surprised too, but Crepe insisted on supporting the boy, who laughs happily beside her. Crepe looks up at her mother with pure admiration, calling out to her. While Crepe sips her drink, Miss Quiche asks if she is Crepe from Suzette. Crepe glares as Miss Quiche wonders if she's the one who confessed to Mont Blanc. Hiding her face, Crepe asks how she knows the Marquis, and Miss Quiche explains they're colleagues. Miss Quiche recalls co-writing a thesis on Pegasus with a white-haired man, noting they still keep in touch. She playfully warns Crepe not to be jealous, as they don't have a special relationship. Galette indignantly objects, insisting his sister wouldn't fall for an uncle, earning a sharp rebuke from his mother. Her mother presents a condition for the sponsorship, piquing a curious Crepe's interest. Crepe brightly announces her condition. She'll support him if he helps her hatch a Pegasus egg. A few days later, Canula begins sword training with an instructor in a large hall. Crepe watches from the side, speculating that Canula was inspired by watching Galette's match. Her father comments that he's getting vicarious satisfaction from watching, leaving Crepe confused. He explains to Canola that people not naturally good with their bodies can feel satisfied just by watching others exercise. Crepe muses on procrastination when her attendant calls out to her. The attendant happily announces that Ms. Quiche and Pitache have arrived. Crepe remembers showing the Pegasus egg to a wide-eyed and very excited Ms. Quiche. Ms. Quiche cheerfully greets Soufflé and Crepe as they arrive at the mansion. As Crepe asks for Pitache, her mother gestures for him to come forward and say hello. A timid boy named Pitache Lauren introduces himself as Ms. Quiche's adopted son. Ms. Quiche playfully corrects him while Crepe properly introduces herself. Crepe silently assesses Pitache, noting the supposed genius wizard is even younger than her. After a moment of silence, Ms. Quiche chides Pitache for being rude. Peeking from behind a curtain, Pitache thinks Crepe looks like she wants to eat him, as Ms. Quiche apologizes for his shyness. Crepe laughs it off, confidently thinking she knows how to handle his timid nature. A table is laden with sparkling, delectable desserts, including a plate of rich brownies. While Crepe happily eats a treat, her mother and Pitache watch her. With full cheeks, Crepe encourages a hesitant Pitache to try one of the amazing brownies. She deviously plots to win him over with sweets, believing no one can keep their guard up against them. Pitache tentatively examines a brownie on his fork before his eyes widen in surprise. Crepe is horrified that this is his first time experiencing the chewy, smile-inducing bliss of a brownie. Feeling pity for his hard life, she internally reassures him that he can learn about these joys now. She enthusiastically offers to teach him about all desserts and become his close friend. With a strained smile, she concedes that becoming his friend won't be that easy. Her maid Amy arrives with the large brown egg, and Crepe asks her to set it down. Pitache stares in awe at the massive Pegasus egg, having only ever heard stories about them. Ms. Quiche asks her son if he senses anything special, and he confirms the egg's authenticity. When asked if he can hatch it, Pitache suggests trying to infuse it with manna first. Ms. Quiche offers to help, and she and an eager Pitache prepare to try together. Two sets of hands channel energy into a large egg, activating a glowing red magic circle on its surface. As Crepe wonders if a magic circle appears when injecting manna, a surprised Quiche asks how she can see it. Crepe confirms she can see the circle, leaving Quiche to mutter that this is unbelievable. Quiche muses that the magic circle she showed everyone before was just for show, as the real one is invisible to normal people. Overjoyed by this revelation, Crepe asks if it's true. Quiche invites Crepe to her magic organization, but her son interrupts by calling for his mom. He anxiously warns his mother that the magic circle is becoming unstable. Quiche's eyes widen in shock as she realizes the danger. A sudden blast of red energy erupts from the egg as Quiche shouts for everyone to get back. The egg lies still on the ornate rug, surrounded by dissipating magical smoke. Crepe's mother pulls her into a protective embrace, frantically calling her name. Cradled in her mother's arms, Crepe quietly insists that she's fine. Quiche checks on them, asking if Ms. Soufflé and Ms. Crepe are both all right. Crepe's mother glares, scolding Quiche for not warning them of the danger, and Quiche offers a panicked apology. After her mother asks if they're okay, Quiche confirms they are fine and formally apologizes for her carelessness. Crepe worriedly asks Ms. Quiche if the egg, which she calls Brownie, will still be able to hatch. Crepe, now holding the egg, states that it's an unprecedented event, but hatching should still be possible. Quiche agrees that the powerful reaction proves it's a unique divine egg from an unknown source, even if it's not a Pegasus. Holding the egg, Crepe hesitantly calls out to her mother, who gives her a stern look. With tearful, pleading eyes, Crepe asks if they can keep trying to hatch Brownie. She earnestly promises she won't make the same mistake again. Her mother relents, giving permission to continue as long as they do it outside, delighting Crepe and Quiche. Crepe joyfully runs to her mother, thanking her with a big hug. The narration explains the hatching process moved to the training grounds, but its success remained uncertain as Quiche and her son continued infusing manna. From a distance, Crepe watches them work, lost in thought. A boy with black hair and a wooden sword appears, declaring he isn't there to see her. Quiche's son holds the egg, announcing that the manna infusion process is complete for the day. The black-haired boy, Patache, accuses Crepe of sponsoring another boy, asking if Mont Blanc isn't enough for her, but she denies it. Crepe shoves Patache away, telling him to return to his practice, and he huffs that he was already leaving. Crepe asks Quiche's son where his mother went, and he explains she went to greet Miss Soufflé first. She then inquires about the hatching, and he admits there's still too little information to be sure. As he suggests they keep injecting mana, Crepe touches the egg and feels a sudden pulse. She excitedly tells him she can feel movement inside, and he smiles, confirming it has been happening more frequently. He concludes there's a high chance it will hatch soon, and as the egg vibrates in her hands, Crepe marvels at the feeling. Thump. Crepe suddenly grabs the boy's hand. She looks up at him with sparkling eyes, holding his hand tightly. Crepe declares that geniuses are truly different and that she's glad she chose to support him. Blushing, he shyly insists he's not a genius. Wham! A boot suddenly kicks the wizard boy, knocking him off his feet. As he groans in pain, Crepe furiously shouts Patache's name. Patache stands over the fallen boy with a smug, arrogant look. He dismisses Crepe's anger, questioning how kicking the boy could have been a mistake. Crepe demands an apology, but Patache offers a fake one, claiming he just messed up while trying to get his sword. The wizard boy's expression hardens, his eyes filling with cold anger. A purple magic circle suddenly materializes beneath Patache's feet. Sensing danger, Crepe cries out for Patache to wait. The magic activates, throwing Patache off balance as he begins to fall backward. Ugh, he cries out as he crashes to the ground. Confused, Patache wonders what happened while the wizard boy asks if he's okay, remarking on the rocky ground. With a condescending smirk, the wizard boy tells Patache he should have been more careful. Patache glares up at him, his red eyes burning with rage as he asks what the kid just said. As Canula and Patache face off with crackling energy, a nervous Crepe thinks she's scared. With a sudden crack, Crepe thinks about how Patache's temper made him seem like a completely different person. Her eyes widen in pure shock. A loud scream echoes as Patache and Canula look over in confusion. Canula asks what's wrong as Crepe panics, realizing something has happened to the egg. The large brown Pegasus egg lies shattered on the ground, its contents spilled. The three children stare in disbelief at the broken egg. Canula grimly points out that a broken egg usually means it's dead. Crepe furiously blames her brother, but he retorts that a monster egg shouldn't break so easily. Wah! Throwing a tantrum, she demands he take responsibility if it's dead, as he tries to calm her down. Lying on the floor, a dazed Crepe looks up as someone calls her name. Patache clarifies that it wasn't the egg that broke. He smiles, holding up a small, plush toy horse that emerged from the shell. Crepe and Canula jump back in astonishment. With tears in her eyes, Crepe recognizes the toy, whispering its name, Brownie. A close-up reveals the adorable brown and white stuffed horse. P-P-Y-O! The plush horse, Brownie, makes a cute sound. That night, narration explains that the news of Brownie's hatching spread rapidly through the mansion. With so many servants as witnesses, it was doubtful the secret would be kept. A beaming Galette bursts in, excitedly asking if it's true a Pegasus was born. At dinner, Galette asks Crepe where she heard the news, and she replies that she overheard it. Annoyed, Crepe realizes the order for silence was useless as Brownie makes a BU sound. Galette asks where their mother is, and Canula explains she's meeting with Miss Quiche. The maid Amy serves Galette his meal, and he thanks her. Galette beams with delight, ready to enjoy his dinner. Canula suggests Galette return to the dorms, but Galette refuses, wanting to see Crepe. Surprising Galette, Crepe agrees with Canula, expressing concern for his health due to the long commute. Touched by her concern, Galette declares Crepe is the only one who cares and tries to hug her, but she wards him off because of Brownie. Galette sulks over Crepe's coldness, while Canula reminds him to behave in front of their guests. A thought suddenly strikes Galette as he holds his spoon. He turns to Patache, asking if he shouldn't be heading back soon. Crepe happily announces that Patache and Miss Quiche will be staying with them for a while. Galette is horrified at the thought of Patache staying in the same house as Crepe. Cannoli turns to Patache, pointedly mentioning that he heard he's a commoner. He sneeringly asks if Patash is planning to seduce Crepe to climb the social ladder. Crepe furiously objects, but Kanula insists he's not making things up. Crepe asks Patache if he seems like someone from their country. Strudel. Patches sits in silence, looking downcast. Crepe explains that he was born in a place near Baumkuchen. A flashback reveals Baumkuchen was once at war with Strudel and is still not well regarded. Kanul reflects on Patache's foreign features, wondering if he is of mixed heritage. Patache quietly reveals he was an orphan, hated by his entire village. He continues, explaining he was tormented simply because he looked different. Peeking through his fingers, he asks menacingly if they can imagine how he lived. As an unsettling blue aura fills the room, Crepe worriedly calls out Patache's name. Kanul turns around, confused by the sudden change. Ugh. He suddenly slumps forward onto the table in pain. Crepe cries out in alarm, asking if Kanula is okay as he groans. Patache reveals he lived by getting revenge on his tormentors, and Kanu realizes it was him from the training ground. Patache declares that when he becomes a magician, everyone who wronged him will be sorry. Stomp. Patache plants his foot firmly. Kanul furiously threatens to kill him. As Crepe tells him to calm down, Kanula shouts for her to stay out of it. Crepe defends Patache, reminding Kanula that he helped Brownie be born and that their mother would disapprove of their fighting. Holding her stuffed horse, Crepe insists Kanula was rude first, leaving him speechless. She scolds Patache for using magic, asking him to be a good role model for Brownie. Crepe sternly forbids him from using magic in her house, and he meekly agrees. Kanula watches the exchange, looking displeased. Teased Patache reluctantly decides to let the matter go. A tense silence settles over the dining room. Phew. Crepe sighs with relief, thinking the fight is over. She notices her brother Galette's strange silence. When Crepe asks what's wrong, a nervous Galette insists it's nothing. Galette smiles oddly, wondering about the ominous feeling he has. Through a window, he questions if his unease is just his imagination. Later, an exhausted Crepe collapses onto her bed. She recalls how Patache and Kanula started clashing after Brownie's arrival. Realizing she needs Patache's help, she sighs that her head hurts. Crepe asks Brownie if she's doing a good job, and he affectionately responds. A confident smile spreads across her face. She pets Brownie, promising to raise him to protect their family. Overwhelmed with worries, Crepe yawns and says she's sleepy. Brownie looks downcast, worried that her brother and mother might die if she fails. Cuddling Brownie, Crepe feels reassured that his existence will make everything all right. She finally drifts off to sleep, holding Brownie close. Outside, Brownie happily rolls in the grass as Crepe scolds him for getting dirty. She sighs, wondering what to do with the naughty divine beast. Brownie gives her an irresistibly cute, sad look, melting her heart. Her resolve broken, Crepe encourages him to do whatever he wants. She worries about what the gardeners will think of the mess. Kanule appears, reminding her it's illegal to secretly raise a divine beast. Crepe defiantly declares she will never hand Brownie over. Kanul smirks, asking about her plans for the day. The scene shifts to a happy Galette holding a birthday present. A group of young nobles discusses an upcoming party everyone will attend. When asked who will care for Brownie, Crepe says not to worry. A voice calls out to Miss Crepe from the garden path. Miss Quiche and Patache arrive with a cheerful wave. Crepe smugly informs Kanula that she arranged for them to watch Brownie. Crepe prepares to hand a confused Brownie over. She tells Brownie to be good with his dad as Patache bids her goodbye. Quiche playfully asks Kanula if Crepe and Patache don't look like a couple. While Patache denies it, Crepe smiles brightly at his side. The scene transitions to a grand party hall filled with guests. Galette stands before the crowd, welcoming them to his party. He humbly expresses his honor at receiving their congratulations. He finishes his speech by wishing everyone a fun evening. A group of his friends shout a cheerful, "Happy birthday, Galette!" Galette laughs, asking them to continue looking after him. A girl named Crepe, now with her hair in a ponytail, praises Galette's speech. He nervously hugs her in relief as she calls him cool, thinking he was actually quite cute. A blonde boy excitedly greets another boy, who asks if the girl with him is Galette's younger sister. The boy, Kevas, waves cheerfully and wishes someone a happy birthday. A bystander reveals Kovas is the one who defeated Galette in the swordsmanship tournament, shocking Crepe. Kovas pats Crepe's head, teasing Galette about a revenge match, while Crepe silently fumes that she's much older than him. Galette confidently tells Crepe not to worry, promising to get payback for her once he learns magic. He smiles, remembering the impressive magic he witnessed a short while ago. Crepe realizes he must be talking about Pachi's magic and wonders what he's planning. As Crepe deduces Galette wants revenge, Kavas scoffs at the idea of beating him with magic. Galette and Keve share a tense, competitive glare. A pink-haired boy suddenly pulls Kavas's ear, scolding him for picking on someone younger. The pink-haired boy apologizes to Galette for Kavas's rudeness, but Galette says he's used to it. The boy, Gelato, smiles and compliments Galette on his considerate nature. Watching from afar, Crepe wonders who Gelato is, while the other boys decide to find out his full name, speculating about his family. A voice greets Miss Crepe, causing her to turn around with an uncertain look. She's shocked to find Marquis Montblanc, who asks why she isn't wearing a dress. Stuttering a hello, a flustered Crepe questions why the Marquis is at the party. She asks what he's doing here. Reminding him he missed her birthday, he replies that he was busy. He presents a gift as an apology, revealing it to be Montblanc shoe, much to her surprise. Happily accepting the pastry, Crepe asks if he came to celebrate Galette's birthday. As Montblanc begins to answer, a frantic voice shouts for Miss Crepe, catching their attention. Patache rushes in out of breath, looking panicked as he announces that something big happened. Crepe leans in, her expression concerned, as Patache prepares to whisper to her. Patache whispers the shocking news into her ear. Brownie flew. She asks if he's serious, and a worried Patache confirms that he is. With a gasp of horror, Crepe realizes that Brownie has disappeared. The scene shifts to a bright, sunlit room with elegant curtains. In the garden, Quiche holds a struggling Brownie still as Patache comments on how miserable he looks. Quiche tells Patache that now is their only chance to examine the Pegasus. Grumbling that Crepe was always around, she decides to perform the examinations now and pries Brownie's mouth open. With a maniacal grin, Quiche reassures Brownie that she won't perform any inhumane experiments. She leans in with a creepy smile, telling him not to be scared. Thwack! Brownie headbutts Quiche, knocking her to the ground as a panicked Patache shouts for his mom. Patache scolds Brownie, saying he shouldn't have attacked his mother, even if he hated being examined. He looks up in confusion, calling out Brownie's name. Patache stares in awe as Brownie floats effortlessly in the sky. He marvels that Brownie is flying with mana, excitedly thinking how much Miss Crepe will love this. A memory flashes of Crepe celebrating Brownie's amazing abilities, but the creature looks down sadly. Patache watches in disbelief as Brownie flies higher, calling out for him to stop. He shakes his unconscious mother, frantically telling her to wake up because Brownie has run away. Patache desperately tries to rouse his mother, shouting that they're in big trouble. Back at the party, Patache finishes his story, apologizing to a distraught Crepe. Crepe asks where Brownie might be, and Patache guesses he's nearby based on the flow of mana. Crepe's expression darkens with worry at the thought of Brownie being in a crowded place. She recalls Kanu's warning that it is illegal to secretly keep a divine beast. Nearby, Marquis Montblanc calmly sips his wine, observing the party. Crepe worries that if Montblanc is targeting her family, he will seize this opportunity. Determined, she tells Patache they must find Brownie first and begins searching inside. As they walk through the bustling hall, Crepe hopes Brownie isn't somewhere so public. She suddenly spots Brownie napping on a high decorative ledge and shouts in alarm. Crepe urgently whispers for Patache to look at the ceiling without making a sound. Crepe gasps, spotting Brownie asleep on the high ledge. Patache asks what they should do, and Crepe wonders why he's sleeping up there. She speculates he used too much mana and is resting, as Patache worries about getting him down. Crepe asks Patache if he can use Palm Wind, but he has no idea what she means. She outlines her plan. She will wait in a corner, he'll use magic to push Brownie to her, and she'll carry him out like a doll. Patoche considers her request, admitting that adjusting the direction will be difficult. Whoosh! A blue magic circle materializes near the sleeping brownie. Patoche agrees to try, aiming his magic as Crepe encourages him. Crepe says she'll go find an empty spot and runs off to retrieve Brownie quickly. As she runs, a voice condescendingly questions why a commoner's kid is at the party. She turns to see party guests staring at Patoche with disgust, realizing he's from Baumkuchen. A guest loudly announces that a slave from Baumkuchen is in the hall, causing Crepe to panic. Thinking the guests are being cruel, Crepe gets angry. She furiously shouts at the crowd, telling them not to speak ill of her child's father. The scene pulls back, showing Crepe standing alone in the vast hall, having drawn everyone's attention. The guests and the stunned Patoche stare in confusion, questioning her statement about a child's father. Flustered, Crepe clarifies that Patoche is the one who made their brownie. Realizing her mistake, she nervously confirms that Brownie is the one she meant. A woman with brown hair arrives, placing a hand on Crepe's shoulder and calmly explaining to the crowd that the Baumkuchenid is a disciple of Amy, their family's head chef. Crepe thinks to herself that her mom has saved her for now. The woman, Ms. Soufflé, asks Patoche if Amy sent him for an empty plate, and he nervously agrees. Ms. Soufflé tells him to return quickly, and he dashes off through the crowd. Phew! Crepe sighs with relief, thanking her mom, who smiles and says it was her pleasure. Crepe whispers urgently to her mother that Brownie has disappeared. Her mother calmly replies that she already heard from Ms. Quiche, much to Crepe's surprise. Ms. Soufflé reassures her daughter not to worry so much, prompting a curious why from Crepe. She explains that the situation resolved itself because everyone's attention was focused on Patoche. Crepe looks up in sudden, horrified realization. Her worst fear is confirmed as she sees Marquis Montblanc calmly holding the sleeping Brownie. Panicked, Crepe realizes they're in big trouble, aghast that Brownie was caught by him of all people. Marquis Montblanc holds the sleeping Brownie, a gentle smile on his face. He holds Brownie up for all to see, announcing he found the Pegasus the Suzette family was secretly keeping. Montblanc questions if raising a divine beast in a knight's house is an act of treason. The guests murmur among themselves, shocked by the accusation and wondering if it truly is treason. Cries of "execute the traitor" and "give her the death penalty" erupt from the crowd as Crepe looks on in terror. Determined, Crepe steels herself, thinking she must stop Montblanc no matter what. Her mother stands with her before Montblanc, as Crepe internally vows to expose him if he tries anything suspicious. Montblanc suggests Miss Soufflé should leave with Crepe before people notice them. He tells Miss Soufflé to take Crepe away while he handles the situation, and she agrees, leaving Crepe confused. Montblanc tells Crepe it's time to go, and she reluctantly agrees. The scene shifts to the exterior of the Grand Estate as Crepe wonders what's going on. Inside a private room, Crepe and Patoche sit opposite Montblanc and a red-haired woman. Montblanc sips his tea, stating he didn't know the Marquis knew about Brownie. The red-haired woman explains that Miss Soufflé was busy, so she'll fill Crepe in. She continues, saying she contacted Count Suzette about Brownie, who promised to send someone trustworthy. Crepe realizes that person must be Marquis Montblanc, who confirms it's not surprising, since he co-authored a paper on Pegasi with Quiche. Crepe sighs in frustration, wondering why her trustworthy dad had to send Montblanc. Marquis Montblanc gently picks up Brownie. Holding Brownie up, Crepe glares defiantly at the Marquis. Montblanc smiles, announcing he'll take Brownie to his territory for research before returning him. Oh no! Crepe hugs Brownie tightly, declaring he's her child and she will never let him go. Marquis Montblanc says he can't take Brownie, much to Crepe's confusion. He explains Brownie has imprinted on her and Patoche, a concept Crepe questions. As Montblanc points out, Brownie is only ever with them. Crepe realizes it's true. Montblanc states that without his imprinted parents, Brownie wouldn't survive. He agrees to leave Brownie in her care, and a thrilled Crepe hugs the creature tightly. Crepe joyfully tells Brownie he can stay, and Patoche celebrates the good news. The red-haired woman questions Montblanc's decision, but he says the information he gained is enough for now. Montblanc announces he has one last thing to check, startling Crepe. As he stands up, A wary Crepe asks what he's doing. He smiles ominously, asking her to forgive his impending rudeness. Whoosh! He suddenly unleashes a powerful magic spell toward the couch. Crepe stares in horror as the magic hurtles directly at her. The spell explodes violently, right in front of where she's sitting. The red-haired woman furiously shouts at Mont Blanc, who coldly tells her to be quiet. Crepe flinches away from the blast, protected by Brownie, who floats defiantly before her. The two adults stare in surprise, realizing Brownie is actively blocking the magic. Patash rushes to Crepe's side to check if she's hurt, and she confirms she's okay. Looking at the floating creature, Crepe asks in awe if Brownie was protecting her. Mont Blanc explains that a Pegasus can counteract magic, rendering wizards powerless against them. He apologizes again, claiming it was the only way to test Brownie's power. Crepe decides to forgive him since she saw Brownie's ability, and Mont Blanc thanks her. She thinks that she dislikes the unwavering calmness Brownie has around her. Announcing he's confirmed what he needed, Mont Blanc bids them farewell. He stops and calls out to Crepe one last time. He assures her that there won't be any issues, and he will inform the Emperor. Crepe tentatively thanks the Marquis for his help. He then says he forgot one thing, asking her to come closer. He leans in to whisper something, causing Crepe to blush and gasp in shock. She demands to know what he's talking about, but he simply laughs it off as a joke. With a final "see you next time," he turns to leave. He walks away, leaving the trio standing in the large, ornate room. Crepe watches him go, admitting to herself that she doesn't know him well. She believes he's on their side for now, given her father's trust in him. A dark premonition shows Mont Blanc reaching out menacingly, hinting at events 1 year in the future. Crepe foresees that he will somehow be involved in her mother's death. Determined to change fate, she vows to do everything she can to prevent it. Her expression hardens with resolve. Time passes, shifting the scene to a sunlit garden. A slightly older Crepe smiles, looking more mature and confident. She recalls that according to the novel, her mother was killed when she turned 7. To prevent this, she began staying in her mother's office around the clock. Her vigilance is absolute, waking up throughout the night to check on her mother. Calling her constant watchfulness hell, Crepe is approached by a familiar voice. Patash appears asking with concern if she is all right. Crepe confesses to Patache that she's not okay. She explains she's worried because Brownie isn't growing properly. Patache questions this, but Crepe insists Brownie's growth is far too slow. He speculates that Brownie's slow growth is probably related to his mana. Crepe confirms his theory, explaining Brownie can only consume mana from those he's imprinted on. Now that he's flying, his mana consumption has increased, and her own supply is no longer enough for him. Crepe asks if she must learn magic for Brownie to grow, and Patache confirms it's true. She sighs, doubting her talent for magic, but Patache enthusiastically reassures her she's special. Whoosh! A brilliant light surrounds them as Patache gestures grandly. As beautiful green sparkles fill the air, Crepe identifies the color, and Patache asks what she sees. Creeping beams, realizing that seeing mana's color proves her exceptional talent for magic. Patache excitedly urges her to go to the Magic Association, wondering what she will be capable of once she starts learning. He proposes they become wizards together and shake things up, since there are so few in the country. Crepe laughs, telling Patache he sounded just like Miss Quiche, which makes him blush. Brownie soars happily through a sparkling, cloud-filled sky. The scene transitions to a grand, castle-like estate under a dark night sky. On a table, a notebook titled, "My Life Strategy" rests beside cookies and tea. While sipping her tea, Crepe thinks that with her mother's death approaching, she must figure out how it happened. She reviews her mind map, frustrated that the novel gave so few details about her mother's death and its method. A flashback shows Crepe's memory of Marquis Mont Blanc talking to the head maid in the garden during her mother's funeral. The memory focuses on Mont Blanc's face in the foggy rain, as Crepe recalls hearing one distinct word. Eating a cookie, she reasons that if assassins had simply broken in, Mont Blanc wouldn't have said what he did that day. As Crepe struggles with the puzzle, Ms. Quiche appears behind her and cheerfully asks what's wrong. Ugh. Startled, Crepe slams her book shut and shouts for Miss Quiche to knock before entering. Miss Quiche insists she did knock, and a flustered Crepe admits she didn't hear her. Miss Quiche notices the book and Crepe quickly hides it, claiming it's just a notebook. Miss Quiche reads the title aloud, My Life Strategy, leaving Crepe stunned and speechless. Panicking, Crepe asks how she can read it, and Miss Quiche explains her reading eye, a divine blessing for high-level wizards. Miss Quiche winks and flashes a peace sign, looking proud of her ability. Crepe wonders if there's a god in this novel, but Miss Quiche confirms the blessing is not magic. Miss Quiche invites her to the Magic Association, but Crepe instantly refuses, surprising her. Changing the subject, Crepe asks why she's there, and Miss Quiche says she came because of Brownie. Miss Quiche declares her plan to take Brownie with her when Miss Soufflé leaves the territory. Crepe shouts in protest, demanding to know what she means, while Miss Quiche looks on innocently. In a panic, Crepe yells, Mom is leaving? Miss Quiche seems surprised, asking if Miss Soufflé hadn't told her yet. Crepe screams for her mom as rain begins to fall on the dark estate. Huffing, she bursts into her mother's office, where Miss Soufflé and Miss Quiche are talking. Miss Quiche asks if the investigation is a secret, as Crepe looks pleadingly at her mother. Crepe tearfully begs her mother not to go on the investigation. Her mother explains it's not for fun, but Crepe insists on going with her. Miss Soufflé tries to reassure her, but Crepe passionately declares she wants to go to the south too. Her mother refuses, citing monsters and bandits, but Crepe stubbornly argues back. Crepe points out that the fortress is near Mont Blanc, and that Pataché will be going too. As her mother listens, Crepe thinks that if the south is dangerous, another child shouldn't be going. With a determined expression, Crepe thinks to herself that she can't believe this is happening. Miss Quiche comments on how mature Crepe has suddenly become, as she and Miss Soufflé look down at the small girl. Her mother smiles warmly, pats her head, and agrees to do as she says, much to Crepe's delight. Crepe gives her mother a big, joyful hug, and her mother chuckles fondly. Miss Soufflé holds Crepe and asks her to make one promise. She asks Crepe to promise not to hide anything from her, causing Crepe to hesitate. A finger gently pinches Crepe's cheek. Her mother playfully pinches her cheek, asking what she's doing while comparing it to something Galette does. Winking, Miss Soufflé reminds Crepe of the promise she just made. Crepe gives a slightly nervous but accepting smile. Mother and daughter seal the deal with a pinky promise. A carriage travels through a sunlit forest. A brown-haired man comments on the beautiful weather. Riding in the carriage, Crepe looks on with grave concern. She thinks with dread that today is the day her mother will be assassinated. Holding Brownie, she recalls her promise to Mont Blanc was her reason for bringing him. Lastly, she sits with a determined expression, clutching the sleeping creature. She remembers Mont Blanc's words from the novel, realizing they align perfectly with the situation. Convinced today is the day, she's startled when the man calls out to her. He asks if she is all right, noting that she doesn't look well. Creepy lies with a smile that she had trouble sleeping, privately admitting she didn't sleep at all. As the carriages travel, she wonders how she could possibly rest while her mother is in danger. With grim resolve, she vows she will not fall asleep until the day is over. A short while later, she's completely passed out. She dreams happily, calling out for her mom. Their journey ends as they arrive at a massive, sun-drenched fortress. Crepe awakens with a jolt, horrified that she fell asleep on her watch. Her mother warmly asks if she slept well, and Crepe answers yes, relieved that nothing happened. A guard offers Miss Soufflé a tour of the fortress, and Crepe resolves to stay sharp. Her mother opens a large, ornate book. Smiling professionally, Miss Soufflé announces that it's time to get to work. The group begins their inspection, with the guard pointing out the diligent maintenance. Crepe pulls Miss Quiche aside to ask where Marquis Mont Blanc is. Miss Quiche realizes he should have arrived by now and decides to go check on him. Before leaving, she instructs Patache to stay by Crepe's side. She also asks Mark, the brown-haired man, to look after the children, and he happily agrees. Crepe asks about Brownie, and Patache explains the creature has calmed down since being wrapped in cloth. She gently tells the swaddled creature to be patient, and he lets out a soft noise. Crepe beams, remarking on how cute he is. Her cheerful expression suddenly vanishes into a dark premonition. She whips her head around in alarm, prompting a concerned Patache to ask what's wrong. She asks if he felt a strange energy, but he tells her no. Crepe wonders if she's just being overly worried. Her mother calls out, telling them it's time to move to the next area. At the fortress wall, Ms. Soufflé asks their guide about the danger from monsters in the area. The guide reassures her that a recent large-scale subjugation has made the area safe. As they walk, Mark urges Crepe to keep up, but she complains about how hard it is to walk. She suddenly freezes, a look of shock on her face. Feeling that strange energy again, she wonders if her body is just acting up from lack of sleep. Her question is answered as a streak of blue energy plummets from the sky. Kia! A terrifying winged harpy monster shrieks as it appears in the sky. A panicked voice shouts for everyone to run as the harpy dives from above. Mark draws his sword, bravely positioning himself in front of Crepe and Patache. Crepe screams for him to stop, realizing in horror that the monster isn't targeting them. The harpy is flying directly toward her mother. Shouting for her mom, Crepe breaks into a desperate sprint, ignoring the calls behind her. She runs with all her might, praying this isn't happening and that her mother will be safe. Determined, she races to stop the monster before it reaches its target. The harpy lets out a piercing shriek as it closes in on Miss Soufflé, who draws her sword to defend herself. Crepe stops dead in her tracks, a gasp of realization on her face. The harpy lunges with a vicious snarl as Miss Soufflé stands ready with her blade. With a sinister grin, the harpy thinks, "Was I too late?" as Miss Soufflé watches from below. Running in a panic, Crepe thinks that this is impossible, and that she hasn't had a chance to do anything yet. Her face is a mask of horror as she wonders if it's all over. A tear rolls down her cheek as she laments that all her years of preparation were in vain. She collapses to her knees in despair, questioning if it's truly impossible to change one's fate. Kia! The harpy lets out a piercing shriek as it lunges at Miss Soufflé. Suddenly, a flash of green energy slams into the harpy, sending it flying. Kiak! The creature screeches in pain, its eyes turning white from the impact. The harpy tumbles helplessly through the air. Miss Soufflé stands firm, her sword drawn and ready for what comes next. Her expression is sharp and focused as she watches the unfolding battle. A magnificent brown horse, wreathed in a divine light, appears in the sky. Puru! The horse lets out a defiant cry, its eyes burning with intensity. In a flashback, a younger Crepe pets a small brownie, vowing to raise him well. She continues petting him, telling him to grow quickly so he can protect their family. The flashback ends with a radiant Crepe happily declaring her love for him. Back in the present, the harpy crashes violently onto the stone ground. It looks up in terror as a massive hoof descends upon it. Ugh! The horse, now fully grown, stomps down hard on the monster. Brownie stands tall and powerful over the defeated harpy. Crepe beams with pride, exclaiming that her brownie is so strong. Her mother rushes over, calling her name as Crepe joyfully shouts for her mom. Ms. Soufflé kneels to check on Crepe, who reassures her that she is fine. Patache asks if everyone is okay, but Ms. Soufflé glares past him, her face grim. She confronts the fortress manager, demanding an explanation, but he insists he doesn't know why monsters appeared in a secured area. A voice cries out a warning, shouting Ms. Soufflé's name. A guard runs toward them, sword raised, yelling that more monsters are coming. 2 more harpies descend, one shrieking, "Kiak!" A black-haired harpy grabs her brown-haired companion and tells the humans to run away. Crepe points to the sky and orders Brownie to take down the monsters, and he responds with a determined Prue. Brownie charges forward, ramming his head into one of the airborne harpies. He soars into the sky, carrying one harpy as another shrieks below. Watching the battle, Crepe wonders what to do about the remaining monster. Patache stands beside her, his expression nervous and uncertain. Mark suddenly dashes forward, telling Miss Soufflé he will buy her time to escape, ignoring her shocked cry of his name. He faces a harpy, declaring it was an honor to serve and that he'll risk his life for her. With a roar of defiance, he challenges the monster to come at him. Kayak! The harpy shrieks as it dives straight for Mark. But the monster swoops right past him, crying, "A lady!" as it targets the group behind him. Crepe narrows her eyes, realizing something is strange, and questions why the monsters are only attacking her mother. She remembers how one of the creatures flew right past her without a glance. She also recalls how they completely ignored Mark, even though he was blocking their path. Crepe comes to a chilling conclusion. Her mother's assassination is being carried out by monsters. This means there must be something specific that is drawing them only to her mom. She closes her eyes in concentration, realizing the strange energy she's been sensing is coming directly from her mother. As her mother stands ready with her sword, Crepe notes the energy is too faint to pinpoint its source. She turns to Patache and urgently tells him to spread his mana around the area. Patache raises his hand, releasing a wave of his magical energy. Crepe thinks that by surrounding them with Patache's familiar mana, she'll be able to isolate and identify the strange energy. Her eyes snap open with determination, a sparkle indicating she has found what she was looking for. Her eyes pinpoint a purple glow on her mother, and she triumphantly thinks she's found it. She snatches an ornate book from her mother's belt, recognizing it as her notebook. Certain the mana is coming from the notebook, she believes moving it will ensure her mother's safety. Crepe dashes away with the book as her mother calls out in confusion, asking where she's going. Kayak the harpy swoops past a shocked Miss Souffle. The creature screeches to a halt, hovering menacingly before Miss Souffle. Crepe realizes with relief that the monster has stopped, confirming they're targeting the notebook. The harpy's glowing red eyes lock onto her, and Crepe cries out in terror. She runs for her life, realizing that now she's the one in big trouble. In a panic, she desperately wonders what she should do. Kayak! The harpy shrieks, thinking it will catch her soon and wondering if there's another way. Crepe has a moment of clarity, realizing the monster is after the notebook, not her. With grim determination, she decides throwing the notebook will make her safe. She hurls the book into the distance, yelling for the monster to take it and leave. Exhausted, Crepe laments her lack of exercise before the harpy swoops down and grabs her. A violent slash sends blood flying through the air. Blood spatters across the scene. A voice calls out her name as Crepe sits dazed on the ground. She looks up in disbelief, trying to call out for Mont Blanc. Marquis Mont Blanc stands before her with a reassuring smile. He turns, revealing a bloody gash on his back as he summons a magic circle. Kayak? The harpy shrieks, finding itself suddenly encased in jagged ice. Mont Blanc urgently shouts for Quiche to act now. A red-haired Miss Quiche appears behind the trapped and snarling harpy. She summons a glowing magic circle, furiously asking how dare it touch her precious ones. Vowing she can't forgive the monster, she unleashes a blast of fire. A powerful wave of flames engulfs the harpy. As a large magic circle fades, Mont Blanc shields himself from the fiery aftermath. He coolly brushes back his hair while Crepe watches in stunned silence from behind him. Seeing the deep, bloody wound on his back, she wonders if he saved her. Mont Blanc's expression turns serious, as he thinks that this is strange. Crepe stares with wide eyes, realizing this turn of events wasn't in the novel. Knights arrive to secure the area, carrying an unconscious Mont Blanc away on a stretcher. Fortunately, there were no casualties, but Mont Blanc was seriously injured. The cursed notebook glows with dark energy before Ms. Quiche destroyed it without investigation. Afterwards, Crepe's mother scolds her for acting so recklessly. Crepe reflects with a smile that the scolding didn't bother her at all, because her mother is safe. The sun sets over the fortress, bathing it in a warm, golden light. In a dimly lit room, a bandaged and shirtless Mont Blanc sits up, looking around. Crepe, sitting by his bedside, expresses her relief that he's regained consciousness. He asks if there were any other casualties, and Patache assures him that everyone is safe. Crepe watches him in silence. The two stare at each other wordlessly in the warm light of the room. Mont Blanc states that the notebook she threw was enchanted to lure monsters. Patache and Crepe listen with serious expressions. He explains he didn't want his gift to hurt anyone, prompting Crepe to ask if he meant her mother no harm. Crepe looks at him doubtfully, asking how she is supposed to believe him. Mont Blanc places a hand over his bandaged chest, a pained expression on his face. Crepe recalls that a wizard is a priest who has dedicated his life to God. She remembers that if a wizard mentions God's name, their words are sincere. Knowing Mont Blanc is a villain, she questions if she can truly believe his words. The door bursts open as Miss Quiche exclaims her relief that Mont Blanc is awake. Mont Blanc confirms he's okay, while Crepe anxiously asks Patache about Brownie's condition. Patache reassures her that Brownie is just sleeping off his mana exhaustion, much to Crepe's relief. She gently pets the sleeping Brownie, wondering what she would have done without him and thanking him for saving her. Miss Quiche decides to leave since the Pegasus is asleep, but Mont Blanc questions her early departure. Mont Blanc insists on leaving as well, stating he'll get better treatment at his own mansion and entrusting the rest to Miss Quiche. As he departs, Mont Blanc bids farewell to Miss Crepe, leaving the group behind. He stands tall and dapper, adjusting his hat before leaving. Crepe politely wishes the Marquis a speedy recovery as he glances back at her. He offers a faint, knowing smile before turning to go. Crepe watches him depart, a thoughtful expression on her face. She realizes with a smile that Mont Blanc saved her life, meaning the future has changed. Looking out at the sunlit grounds, she wonders if the danger is really over. Miss Soufflé formally thanks Miss Quiche for her help, but Miss Quiche returns the sentiment, grateful her son is also safe. Miss Soufflé asks about the cursed notebook, and Miss Quiche promises a full investigation back at her mansion. When asked about Mont Blanc, Miss Quiche states she has no intention of holding him accountable for the incident. She explains that he is pardoned since he protected Crepe, who yawns sleepily nearby. A tired Crepe urges her mother to go home, and her mother agrees it's time to leave. Miss Quiche bids them farewell as Miss Soufflé wishes her a safe journey home. Inside their carriage, Miss Soufflé watches her daughter, who sits quietly across from her. Miss Soufflé reminds Crepe of her promise not to hide anything in exchange for coming to the fortress. Crepe hesitates, internally struggling with how to explain her knowledge of the future without revealing her secret. She lies that she simply had a bad dream, prompting her mother to ask for details. Crepe confesses she's had recurring dreams of her mother dying since she was very young. Her mother ponders this, recalling when Crepe solved a difficult magic formula at age 5. She explains her research revealed that magically gifted children often have precognitive dreams. Her mother declares that Crepe is no ordinary child, having recognized the Pegasus egg and saved her life. With a bright, proud smile, she enthusiastically suggests that Crepe join the Magic Association, leaving Crepe stunned. A blonde boy screams Crepe's name, his face a mask of distress. The boy, held back by another, insists he's going to the Magic Association too, but is told to graduate first. Crepe laughs nervously at the chaotic scene before her. She explains that the boy Galette is throwing a tantrum because she is leaving for the Magic Association. In a flashback, Miss Soufflé immediately instructed Miss Quiche to arrange for Crepe's admission after the incident. Miss Quiche promptly contacted the Magic Association, and Crepe had only a few days to prepare. The news of her departure sent Galette into a state of shock and denial. Sighing, Crepe decides she must handle the distraught boy herself. She pulls Galette aside to speak with him privately, and he looks at her in confusion. Crepe prepares to tell him a secret she wasn't supposed to share with anyone. She asks if he remembers the attack at the fortress, which he confirms. Crepe reveals their mother was intentionally targeted, leaving Galette in disbelief. She confirms it's true and explains she must learn magic at the association to protect their family. She entrusts their mother's safety to him, asking him to watch over her while she's away. Galette reluctantly agrees, but makes her promise to write to him often. Crepe beams with a bright, happy smile, relieved that he understands. A man with long black hair and glasses stands waiting, with a stoic expression. The man asks if she is packed, and Miss Soufflé announces that it's time to go. Before they leave, Miss Soufflé kindly asks for Crepe's hand, much to her surprise. Crepe marvels at the colorful candies in her mother's hands. Her mother gives her the candy, promising it will cheer her up when she's sad. Back in the present, a man with glasses tells Crepe it's time to leave. Crepe waves a bright and cheerful goodbye. Standing on a glowing green circle, a red-haired woman asks if Crepe is ready for teleportation. Miss Keisha explains that she and a man named Fior will handle the magic. The mages begin a countdown from 3. Excited for her first teleportation, Crepe waits as the countdown hits 1. A dazzling vortex of stars and light surrounds a wide-eyed Crepe. The magical journey leaves her looking dazed and speechless. Miss Quiche triumphantly announces their instant arrival at their destination. She proudly gestures to the magnificent and impossibly tall magic tower. Noticing Crepe's silence, Miss Quiche turns to see her looking terribly ill. Crepe vomits a rainbow, much to Miss Quiche's shock. Crepe awakens on a couch, confused, as Miss Quiche greets her. Miss Quiche cheerfully explains that Crepe simply fainted from the teleportation. She clarifies that Crepe's sensitivity to mana caused a severe case of motion sickness. Miss Quiche presents Crepe with the Magic Tower pledge to sign. She reassures her that it's mostly a standard confidentiality agreement. Crepe sees no problem, and Miss Quiche declares her fun new life will now begin. Handing the pledge to Fior, Crepe asks if classes will start tomorrow. Fior and Miss Quiche share a knowing, slightly mischievous look. Miss Quiche gleefully announces that classes start today, with no days off. A massive stack of books magically appears with a thud. Crepe cries out in horror at the towering mountain of textbooks before her. She asks why there are so many, but Miss Quiche seems unfazed. Miss Quiche slams her fist on the desk, declaring theory the foundation of all magic. She insists this is the bare minimum study required, leaving Crepe aghast. As Fior struggles with another huge stack, a defeated Crepe asks if they're kidding. With unsettling smiles, they tell her they already cut the assignment in half for her. Overwhelmed by thoughts of assignments and theory, Crepe begins to panic. She clutches her head in despair, screaming that she wants to go home. The magic tower stands tall against the night sky. Fior shows an exhausted Crepe to her room for the night. As he leaves, he warns her not to wander, suggesting she should just sleep. He casually mentions a rumor about ghosts in the tower, piquing Crepe's concern. With a menacing smile, he promises tonight is her last peaceful rest. Crepe thinks his ominous warning is far scarier than any ghost story. A sudden noise startles her, and she glances back into the room. Spotting a mysterious figure, she demands to know who is there. She timidly calls out into the room, asking if anyone is there. Swoosh! Someone suddenly tackles her from behind. A boy with silver-gray hair pins her to the floor. With her face squished, she struggles to understand what's happening. Her eyes widen in recognition as she gets a clear look at him. The silver-haired boy stares down at her with cool blue eyes. She mentally notes his distinctive silver-gray, wolf-like hair. She realizes he is the Crown Prince from the novel, the heroine's fiancé. The Crown Prince questions her, asking if she knows him. In a baffling turn, 2 identical silver-haired boys stand in her room. The silver-haired boy demands to know why a child is in the magic tower and how she knows his name is Appel. Flustered, Crepe reminds herself to be careful, as this is Crown Prince Appel. She calmly explains that she is a new student who enrolled just today. Crepe continues her deduction, stating that since he's the youngest student, another person his age must be royalty. Focusing on his vibrant blue eyes, she correctly identifies him as Crown Prince Apel Strudel. Apel is stunned by her quick reasoning, while Crepe smugly states she's in the tower for a reason. Crepe thoughtfully observes that he arrived through the window without any guards. She correctly guesses that he snuck out, leaving him shocked and speechless. Apel nervously asks if she will tell anyone, but Crepe kindly reassures him that she won't. His hands clench nervously amidst a vision of delicate blue flowers. Crepe's heart flutters as she realizes how cute he is. She enthusiastically promises to keep his secret. As he leaves, Appel warns her not to break her promise, and she nervously agrees. He pauses at the door to ask for her name, and Crepe points to herself in surprise. She happily introduces herself with a bright smile. Appel smiles back, thanking her, and bidding farewell to Crepe. Crepe muses that the male lead is handsome and much calmer than she expected from the novel. She recalls that beyond his status, one word truly defined the powerful, shadowy figure he would become. That word was tyrant, as she envisions him sitting on a blood-soaked throne. Lying on her bed, Crepe sighs, thinking that his temper must be legendary to command someone like Patache. Recalling his polite, "thank you," she wonders if he was more reasonable when he was younger. Yawn. Overwhelmed, she lets out a big yawn. Deciding to deal with it later, she resolves to just go to sleep as the magic tower glows in the night. The next morning, Miss Quiche wishes Crepe a good morning at the breakfast table, and Crepe returns the greeting. Miss Quiche cheerfully rallies for a hard day's work, but Crepe looks exhausted. Fior quietly asks Miss Quiche if Crepe is truly a genius, and she happily confirms it. He then asks if Crepe was the one who teleported that morning, but Miss Quiche reveals it was someone else. Peeved. Crepe spits out her drink in shock as Miss Quiche announces the teleporter was the prince. Cough, cough. Miss Quiche rushes to her side with a tissue, asking if she's okay. Wiping her mouth, Crepe looks up with wide, questioning eyes. Seeing her reaction, Miss Quiche knowingly asks if Crepe saw the prince, but Crepe frantically denies it. Miss Quiche reveals the prince sneaks out so often he's called the Ghost, stunning Crepe with the news that everyone knew. Winking, Miss Quiche boasts about the tower's top-notch security, knowing they've already caught Appel. As an image of Appel appears, Crepe asks why they let the intruder slide. Miss Quiche explains that if the prince takes an interest in magic, the tower will get more funding, a fact Crepe accepts. Crepe eats with a mischievous grin, imagining Appel's face when he learns his secret is out. A pointer taps a chalkboard as the instructor announces the end of today's class. Fior hands Crepe a stack of textbooks for her to study, and she notes that class ended surprisingly early. He explains they have other students and can't always give her one-on-one lessons, which Crepe understands. With renewed determination, Crepe decides she will simply do as much as she can on her own. Fior seems touched by her spirit and advises her not to push herself too hard. He kindly offers to help her with anything, and Crepe's eyes light up as she begins to ask a question. She settles down at her desk to begin her studies. Looking over a complex magic circle, she finds it surprisingly easy, realizing the basics are just math. Thanks to her past life studies, high school math is no problem for her, and she envisions scoring a perfect 100. She remembers her disapproving mother from her past life, who forced her to study relentlessly. A warm image of her happy family from her past life flashes in her mind. Shaking it off, Crepe gives herself a pep talk, ready to tackle her work. She studies diligently late into the night by lamplight. Suddenly, a sing-song voice calling Crepe breaks her concentration. Whip! Turning suddenly, Crepe is startled by the silver-haired boy and asks, "Who is there?" The silver-haired boy smiles warmly at Crepe amidst a field of flowers. A loud scream echoes through the room. Startled, Crepe tumbles over her chair and asks when he got in. He teases that she was very focused. She asks what brings him to her room. Appel smiles brightly, ready to share his reason. A narrator explains that in the original novel, Crepe gave Appel a brownie, and their relationship blossomed into love. Clutching a brownie, Crepe thinks that her connection with Apel should have ended then. She steels herself, believing she was sure of how things would go. Crepe and Apel face each other again in a romantic, rose-filled scene. Crepe asks the prince why he came, and he replies that he remembered something. Apel claims he's seen her somewhere before, leaving a shocked Crepe pointing at herself in disbelief. She wonders where he could have seen her, as she never leaves the house. When Crepe asks where exactly, Appel playfully asks if she really wants to know. With a charming smile, Appel extends a hand toward her. Huff Huff at the top of the tower, an exhausted Crepe asks why they came up here. Appel simply tells her to look up for a second. Wow! She is left breathless by the beautiful starry sky. The two stand together, bathed in the light of the cosmos. Crepe tells the prince the view is beautiful, and he agrees the tower's sky is stunning. Appel says the view is one reason he comes here, and Crepe correctly guesses magic is the other. She asks why he learns magic in secret, but he seems hesitant to answer. He admits with a smile that his mother doesn't approve of him learning magic. A flashback shows the Empress forbidding a younger April from pursuing magic. However, as his talent became recognized, the Empress eventually relented. To win her approval sooner, Appel needed to improve his magic skills. With a smile, Crepe thinks that maybe she should help him a little. She offers to help him with his studies, much to his surprise. Crepe offers to bring him books from her teacher, and a grateful Appel accepts. Appel laughs with pure, unbridled joy. Changing the subject, Crepe asks again where exactly he saw her before. With a cheerful point, April declares he saw her in his dream. What? Crepe is utterly baffled by his answer. He insists he's serious, claiming it was a prophetic dream, which piques Crepe's curiosity. Crepe explains that magically talented people often have prophetic dreams, and Appel recalls his mother saying something similar. She leans in to whisper that it's a secret, frustrating Appel, who wants to know more. Blushing furiously, April demands to know what he did in the dream. Crepe looks worried, wondering what on earth she could have done. Appel laughingly reveals that she was eating desserts like crazy in his dream. Embarrassed, Crepe covers his mouth and begs him not to say any more. He says she looked cute holding desserts in both hands, but she argues it's not something girls want others to see. Still covering his mouth, Crepe wonders if she's destined to eat in reality and in dreams. She concludes his nice behavior is likely due to the dream. Crepe reminds the prince of the long climb down, worrying about the time. He tells her not to worry, revealing a glowing magic stone that summons a teleportation circle. Appel puts an arm around a surprised Crepe. In one swift motion, he sweeps her up into his arms. "All right, here we go," he says, while a confused Crepe asks where they're going. With a confident smile, Appel leaps off the top of the tower, carrying her. He asks Crepe if she's okay, and a stunned Crepe weakly agrees. April tells a confused Crepe to hold on tight as he's about to drop down. A loud scream echoes as they plummet from the tower. They land gently on a glowing purple magic circle, and Appel announces their arrival. Cling. A terrified Crepe hugs him tightly as he gently says her name. Grin. A close-up shows Appel's satisfied and amused expression. He playfully asks if she wants to hold on a bit longer, surprising her. Back in her room, April tells Crepe he had a great time, and she agrees. With a friendly smile, he asks her to call him Appel when they're alone, flustering her. He insists it's fine, explaining that he would actually prefer it. After a moment of hesitation, she smiles and agrees, saying his name. He laughs heartily, exclaiming that it sounds much better. Announcing he should leave before being caught, he bids Crepe farewell for the night. She watches him fly into the night sky, whispering her own goodbye. She thinks that everyone in the tower already knows he's here, as April laughs joyfully in the distance. In the library, Miss Quiche teases Crepe about her date with the ghost, revealing she knew all along. Miss Quiche continues to praise Crepe, calling her an impressive and captivating woman for seducing the prince. The red-haired woman muses that a magic oath would be a waste on someone so popular, but Crepe warns against impure intentions. Winking, Miss Quiche claims even a demon would accept her, prompting Crepe to question the term. A silhouetted figure appears as Miss Quiche corrects Crepe's pronunciation to demon, not demon, and Crepe agrees to be careful. Crepe wonders why the palace opposes the prince learning magic, and Miss Quiche agrees it's strange since the kingdom employs magicians. Miss Quiche laments the prince's wasted talent, explaining he can teleport solo when it usually takes 2 or 3 mages. Miss Quiche bemoans the number of geniuses in the world, then reminds a nervous Crepe not to act like an outsider. Slap! A hand reveals Crepe's test paper with a perfect score, announcing she solved every question. A shocked Fior, holding a massive stack of books, can't believe it. Miss Quiche dismisses the test's difficulty, but Fior insists the questions were not simple at all. Fior thoughtfully examines her perfect test paper, clearly impressed. He places a thick book on the table, in front of a surprised Crepe. Fior challenges her to solve a problem from the book, and she confidently agrees. When asked about a whole stack of books, Crepe calmly states she can solve those as well. Fior is speechless, marveling at her advanced level of theoretical knowledge for her age. With a sharp snap, he closes the book with newfound resolve. Fior declares to Miss Quiche that he must be the one to teach Crepe, but she angrily retorts that she claimed Crepe first. Fior argues Crepe's skills are suited for magic circles, while Miss Quiche counters that she could become a grand mage quickly. Both teachers turn to a startled Crepe, demanding to know what she thinks. Laughing nervously, Crepe tries to de-escalate the situation by suggesting they all calm down first. Fior sheepishly asks to see Crepe's wrist for a moment. He gently fastens a beautiful, ornate silver bracelet onto her wrist. Crepe's eyes light up with delight as she admires the new bracelet. Fior explains it's a special bracelet for tracking mana, prompting an outraged Miss Quiche to accuse him of bribery. Ms. Quiche playfully offers a counter-bribe, asking if Crepe wants to see Brownie. Crepe's face lights up with pure, unadulterated joy at the mention of the name. Phew! A small brown pony sighs with relief in a lush green forest. Overjoyed, Crepe hugs Brownie tightly, asking if the pony remembers her. A voice asks if she sees that Brownie is doing well, causing her to look up in surprise. She happily recognizes Patache, who greets her with a warm smile while holding a basket. He sets a large wicker picnic basket on the ground with a soft thud. Patache looks at her with deep concern, asking what happened to her. He worriedly points out how thin her face and frail her arms look. He exclaims that she's nothing but skin and bones, leaving Crepe completely baffled. Opening the picnic basket, Patache laments the tower's apparent lack of funds, while Crepe recalls eating 3 pieces of bread per meal. Patache happily presents a picnic basket he brought along. He reveals a delightful spread of desserts, which he explains he bought on his way over, much to Crepe's delight. Patache smiles, thinking this is the happy Crepe he remembers as she enjoys a slice of cake. He admits he was worried about her, especially regarding her eldest brother, which confuses Crepe. A flashback begins, showing someone offering a younger Crepe a brownie. The memory reveals it was Galette, happily presenting her with her favorite treat. He calls her a sweetheart, delighted by her kindness, while Patache looks on from a distance. In a different scene, Canula asks Patache to remind Crepe to respond to her letters. Galette's voice explains her other brother has been losing his mind since she left. Canula earnestly pleads with Patache to get Crepe to write back soon. Back at the picnic, Patache relays Canula's message, leaving Crepe to wonder what happened. Crepe thinks to herself that Canula has been surprisingly decent lately, and she feels confused. She silently wonders if Galette's madness somehow fixed the animosity between Canula and Patache. She recalls a fond memory of Galette happily holding her like a doll. Brownie the horse perks up with a curious sound. Their picnic is suddenly interrupted as rain begins to fall. Patache urges they leave before it pours, and Crepe tells Brownie it's time to go. Miss Quiche arrives as they prepare to leave, agreeing it's a shame the rain cut their time short. Crepe gently pets Brownie's face, telling the little horse to stay healthy. As her guests depart, Crepe waves and wishes them a safe journey home. Now alone, Crepe decides she should write a letter to her brother Galette. She sits by a large window, watching the rain pour down outside. While diligently writing, a sudden noise makes her look up with a start. She turns towards the window, wondering if the sound was just the wind. A voice urgently yells for her to close the door, making her jump in alarm. Standing outside in the storm is a white-haired boy she recognizes as Appel.